Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your host, Tim Niederreiter, and with me today is a guest who's returning to the show after, several years away, a few years at least. Terry Shepard, welcome back. Good to have you.
It's great to see you, my friend. There's a lot of water under the bridge since we last talked, isn't it?
Oh boy, you have no idea. Literally and figuratively in this case.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
I mean, you're down in Florida, right? And I'm up in Minnesota. We had some serious rain earlier this year, broke our drought, Anyway, but that's the weather. Forget the weather. We're not talking about the weather. It's about writing.
Right, absolutely.
What have you been up to lately? I mean,
I am in, I have 4 Jessica books out now. So
awesome. That's 2 more than you had last time,
Chasing Vega, Chasing the Captain were around when we last talked. And then Chasing Karma, and then I did one that was almost kind of a standalone called Transference, where Jessica was a secondary character. And then now I'm working on the one that I have about half done is something called The Innocent, where I've made Jessica, she's a secondary character in this. I've got a PI that's chasing somebody down there, but Jess is involved because the PI is an ex-cop, and Jess is his one friend at the force that gets him what he needs on the inside and is always trying to get him to work. He doesn't want to work. He lives in a junkyard, he's automotive junkyard. Okay. And when he needs money, when his pension runs out for the month, he takes on these jobs where he goes after cheating spouses and gets beat up. So he always ends up in the emergency room.
Sounds like a classic, it's classic Private Eye stuff.
It's a tired trope, but I'm having so much fun with it. It's great. It's really good.
Oh, no, that sounds like fun. I mean, for some reason, I haven't actually read that many PI books, but at least not compared to a lot of people, right? I mean, but I remember one of my favorite, I don't know, are you familiar with Calvin and Hobbes?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I bet you are. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I started out reading on Calvin and Hobbes.
Yep.
That was just when I was a kid, I was reading Calvin and Hobbes in the early 90s. And my parents would show me, this is what this is. It's blah, 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 blah. And I'd learn to read that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Waterston.
And along with my twin brother.
I think Sam Waterston was a philosopher.
Bill Waterston.
Bill Waterston. Bill Waterston. Yeah, I'm thinking about the actor Sam Waterston, but Bill was
Bill Waterston,
definitely a philosopher. And every now and then something serious would creep in. Yeah. And
but he had that character Tracer Bullet that some would be in some of the comics, and that's what I always think about, because he had this crazy. That was just my first introduction to the Private Eye genre, so that's why it always is what goes back to me because it's he's this noir detective, and he's what was the line? He's I got my friends travel light, and they're fun to have around.
Yeah,
one travels in a holster, the other in a hip flask.
Right, and then on the other side, in the reality side, you see Miss Wormwood or his mom or something.
Yeah,
they don't understand him at all.
It's awesome. I really loved Calvin and Hobbes as growing up, and I still do. I mean, you can only read the same comics so many times, but they were a real gift to me back then. I mean, I pretty much got them all pretty memorized.
Have you ever thought about trying to write a comic, a graphic novel or something like that?
I've thought about it, but I'm not an artist, so I like being solo. I like my solo work, right? Mm-hmm. I don't like having to
collaborate,
write the script for somebody else to draw. Yeah, I'm not really a collaborative guy in that way, right?
Yeah,
I prefer to do it all myself, and I don't have those skills, right?
Well,
I tried drawing. I really wanted to do it because I love comics, love graphic novels, and
they're expensive.
I wanted to get into it when I was a kid. They're hard to, I also love manga, and that's black and white, so it doesn't have to be expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I did for Vega. I actually started down the road of a graphic novel for Vega, and I did a test. I did the first chapter of the story in the graphic novel, and I hired an artist and a colorist, and I wrote the script. I have a friend that he's very well known. He used to run DC Comics, and he went to my alma mater, so I got to know him pretty well. Because at the place where I went to college, we had a huge comic book collection, which was what brought him there. And he ended up working for Richard Donner on Superman 2 and ended up, bringing Aquaman back and in and out of fame and stuff. But a very good writer. And so I wrote to him. I said, I think I want to do a graphic novel for Jess. And he sent me one of his scripts. He says, here's how you do it. And he gave me a couple of books, which I read. But like you, I figured out, number one, $150 a page was what the best I could do. If you're going to get a decent artist, right?
Yeah, you got to pay them what they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? At least, I mean, if not, cut them in on the profits as well, right? I mean, I think if you really want to collaborate with them, you got to give them like an upfront stipend. Yeah, and cut them in on a percentage. I think that's the only way to do it. If you want, especially if you want to do a series with them or whatever. I mean, I'm not sure if you were pointing on that.
Well, I was, but you know what I discovered about Jess, when you've created somebody from scratch like that, you're also creating an audience from scratch. And Jessica's audience has grown over the past 5 years, but it hasn't skyrocketed. It's not like writing in some of the genre that already has a fan base, like Jeff did in the comic world. When they give you Aquaman or Wonder Woman and say, write for that, there's a built-in audience out there. You just don't want to screw up. You don't want to screw it up.
That's the big time for comics.
And that's it's almost, we were going to talk about ghostwriting. It's almost like ghostwriting because you're being given a character with a set of traits and the wireframes of a story, and then you got to take that story through. And if you're the kind of writer that I think you and I are, we would much rather have total control over where the plot and everything is going.
Yes. For one thing, because you say total control, but I never have total control, right? I never really have control over my own stories the way that I feel like I would.
Why do you say that? Because of your editors and stuff, or what?
No, because I'm not in control of what I write down necessarily. I mean, it just comes to me. It just comes out. It's like, okay, that happened now.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with it? And it kind of reminds me of my game mastering lately, especially for the RPGs I've been doing. Yeah. Which obviously nobody here can see or hear those. Those are private. But when I run an RPG, I will frequently dictate. I game master these games that are in my story worlds.
Right.
They involve my stuff, but other people decide basically what happens. And that's how I feel a little bit when I'm writing as well now these days. It doesn't feel that different, even though there's nobody else there.
Well, and
does that make sense?
See, I mean, a lot of us would die for that experience because for me, at least as a writer, I live for those moments where the muse is singing and it's coming through me and not from me. Those are some of the best things that I do.
It happened to me. It happened to me today, right? I was like, well, I mean, this is what has to happen, but this is also what would happen, and this is what is. And I'm like, okay, so I know what this scene's about, but now what is going to go on here is surprised even me, right?
Yeah.
I'm writing this scene that's like, okay, I know this is going to be like a dark nativity, an evil nativity scene, basically,
really?
Or evil Christmas story. Yeah, because I was like I set this whole arc up in this book, in this epic fantasy I'm writing that. It's this is an evil god is being born.
Oh, okay.
In this fantasy world.
Yeah, like Rosemary's Baby.
And he's not going to. Yeah, well, kind of, but he's actually. It's complicated because I was like, well, if I was an evil god, I wouldn't be born like the Jesus story where he's born as a baby.
Yeah.
If I was an evil god of all power and might, I would come out ready to conquer and kick people's asses.
Yeah, you know what? The backstory. I mean, I love to understand what makes a bad guy bad. Because, like,
right. And I mean, obviously, it's not just anybody, but I mean, just to put things in perspective here, is like this guy hasn't come. This god is being born in this scene. Like, he is not born yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this evil being is coming into this demon thing is coming into being, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I don't know what that's going to be like, and I had ideas, but it's surprising me, and I'm not quite done with the chapter yet. I'm in the chapter, the pivotal chapters now, and I'm like, what is he even going to be like? I'm going to figure this. It's weirdly like having a new character. I mean, it is literally having a new character appear in the book, a third of the way through. The villain is appearing finally, which is starting to seem like a trope of mine, honestly. We're like the main enemy. It's like one of my favorite things. The really scary thing that happens is going to start appearing in the middle of the book, not like at the very beginning.
So you're the ultimate pantser. You just let it happen.
Yeah, I have to, otherwise it gets bad.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, when I've tried to control the pace of a book, that's when it gets wrong. That's when it goes bad.
And this is probably the difference between our experiences. Is before I started writing fiction, a lot of the stuff that I was doing, especially when I was in broadcasting, people would bring me copy points for a commercial, and I would have to turn that into something that would sell cars or something like that. So I was always taking other people's message points, and after a while, And that it's like anything. The more you do it, you notice immediately what the thing is that's going to make the audience take action, and that's what you zoom in on. And before you know it, you're the guy that's selling the stuff that you put in your laundry when you can't get the dirt out of your shirts. It's like OxyClean. The guy who sold OxyClean. That's what it felt like to me back in the day. Because you also had to cram it into 30 seconds. That was the other thing. You got to tell a story that gets somebody to take some action and motivates them in less than a minute. I mean, that's crazy.
That's a real skill that you have to develop there.
It is, and you can, and a lot of them are bad. I mean, back a long time ago, back when the radio stations were all kind of independently owned, and there were more agencies out there. There was some pretty creative stuff that was being done, and the Radio Advertising Bureau would send us cassettes with examples of really cool commercials to inspire us. And I'd take them and play in my car instead of my Steely Dan stuff in the 8-track because they were great, they were hilarious, they were creative, and they gave me good ideas and stuff. And it's that's kind of, I think in today's parlance, that's almost what YouTube is like now. Because I'll find myself surfing YouTube looking for the latest Norm Macdonald stuff that's released or whatever, and those. The other thing that's interesting, I don't know if this has happened to you, is that now that the reels and the shorts are out on Insta and Facebook, and you can scroll through those babies, I'm fascinated at what makes a person post that scene, because you have like a minute and a half max or something like that to do the whole thing. So a lot of my favorite movies are on there, but it's a pivotal scene, and I'm thinking, okay, so this is the scene that moved these guys. They loved it enough to want to share it. What can I take away from that and learn from my writing? So that's been almost like a writing class for me, scrolling.
Oh, that's really exciting. I get annoyed with the scrolling videos like that. I couldn't stand TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Now it's on Facebook, and I'm actually starting to get used to it. So maybe it's going to happen. Maybe I will.
You go past the stuff you don't like. I couldn't tell you.
No, exactly. Like I don't even have Facebook on my phone anymore. But when I'm scrolling down on the Facebook on the website, when I have to go there, and I see these are genuinely compelling things a lot of the time that I'm seeing in these ads, in these little video windows on the page. And I'm like, what the heck? How they're getting me? Somebody's getting me.
See, and that is I think that's an art form that needs to be developed. What I've thought about is I don't have the money to create a 2-hour Jessica film for one of the books, but I probably do have the money to create a 2-minute scene and hire some actors and film it and edit it and do some post on it. And you never know. I mean, who out there is scrolling? Maybe one of Steven Spielberg or Ron Howard's guys is scrolling, and they see that and they say that might be the tipping point. That feels to me like that's the next big art form. Is not just taking somebody else's stuff like that you see that they grab their favorite scene from a movie, but actually creating it yourself and shooting in. I always get pissed off for portrait orientation, right? I like 16 by 9 landscape, but in that, in TikTok and stuff like that, it's all portrait. So it's another art form. And who knows? I mean, the problem today, Tim, I'm sure you feel the same way, is that everything is so ephemeral. It's here very briefly, and then there's something new. I mean, everybody's going to Blue Sky now, right? They went from 5 million to 15 million in the space of 10 days, and
that's insane.
Today,
I didn't know what the numbers were. That's crazy.
And we're at a tipping point because today I was on Facebook, and all of my friends are now signing up for Blue Sky, and I'm seeing their things on there. And I don't think the platform can even keep up with it fast enough because, I go to friend them and I can't find them yet because they're not in the database. They're still processing. So that's fun. That reminds you like of the early days of every social network when they're first on. Like I remember the night that we got Osama bin Laden. I mean, Twitter was still Twitter. And that's where we found out about it first because there was somebody over there and they said, hey, there's gunshots in the compound. Right. And I happened to be on that thing, and so I told my wife, "Let's turn on the TV." And like 10 minutes later, President Obama was walking towards the podium, and history was being made. And that's the tragedy to me of where Twitter has gone and the way we're using it.
Oh, absolutely.
An echo chamber for pain and division.
It used to be. it used to be an echo chamber that I liked at times. Not for the pain part, obviously. I used to have lots of writer friends on Twitter, and now they're gradually just going away. My Twitter forward dropping every day as people log out for good.
Yep.
And that's probably for the best. It's kind of time, you know.
It is. Well, and there's, it's just
I got used to Twitter though, and I'm a little annoyed that it's going away. But hey, whatever. It sucked. It sucked so bad the past year and a half that I'm like, whatever.
Well, Blue Sky and Threads have developed their own personalities, and we'll see where they go. I mean, they're clearly. I think the reason people are going to Blue Sky is because it's you don't have to deal with, Zuckerberg as you do in the Meta platforms.
Yeah.
And you're not dealing with that crazy Elon Musk dude on Twitter.
You got lunatics either way in those two options. Yeah.
Right.
So, I think that's why Blue Sky's so popular. At least the guy, because that was created by the same guy who made
Jack
Twitter,
Dorsey.
right?
Yep. Right.
Yeah. Jack Dorsey, at least it keeps his mouth shut most of the time. Come on.
Yeah. And he's not even, I don't think he's even involved with it anymore. It's kind of like a bunch of different like investors that are there. There's no one, super manager. That is running.
Well, that's good to hear. I'll have to revitalize my account on there because I've been on Blue Sky for maybe 6 months.
Yeah,
but I didn't do much with it. I was like, okay, I'll just.
Well, there wasn't much happening when you got there. There wasn't much happening, right? I mean, that was
right.
Me too. I mean, I was there very, very early, and there was quiet. It was silence. It was like being in this big gymnasium with no other spectators there. And when you put something out, you want the dialogue, right? I mean, that's what I love about interacting with you on Facebook. When I see something that you do that I like, which happens often, and I'll throw a like on it, or I always try and comment because likes to me, likes are
so
it's
shallow.
It's like throwing a dandelion at somebody. It's just or the people that on your birthday just say happy birthday, right? I mean. Right. Tell me something why you're saying that to me. I really appreciate you because
I suppose that's a good point. I've been known to do shallow happy birthday every now and then, but it's partially because. But then I don't do happy birthday for everybody. I'm kind of I'm a talkative guy, but on social media I can be a little laconic sometimes.
And that's okay. I mean, a lot of times I'll hit him with a direct because that I can be more personal with that. But
that makes sense.
For me. I think this is my philosophy of life. We've probably talked about this before, but I think we're put on this earth to mitigate suffering. That's why we're here. We're all here to make it a little bit better for everybody else and to find out where people hurt and do what we can to build up their self-confidence, their self-esteem, help them, take a step in the direction of their dreams. And for me, whenever I can do that, even if I'm saying, dang, I just finished this segment of your book and it kept me up 3/4 of the night because I couldn't put it down. I mean, that's if it's authentic and it's true, that's the kind of stuff that it keeps us going on the bad days. You know?
No, absolutely. I mean, I've only recently been really getting, obviously I've had some kind words said to me in the past, but lately I've been getting a lot more of them.
Oh, good. Well, you should. You're a good writer. Yeah.
I feel like it's really helped my confidence, right? I feel like I'm, not only that, but when I write a scene and somebody, like I sent one to my friend Ryan Hart, right, who's been on this show before too. Yeah. I sent the first 4 chapters of the book I'm writing right now, the one with the evil demon baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was like, "You just got to finish this. This is so good." I mean, he's not that fantasy isn't his first genre either. Really, he likes reading it. I say it's not really his genre, but he's just got a lot of diverse interests. Let me put it that way. As a writer, he's written for Magic the Gathering and stuff like that now. So he's gotten a lot of good experience out there in the fantasy genre. He's actually probably made more money out of it than I have at this point.
The 3 most encouraging words we can say to anybody is "Tell me more."
Yeah, and I was really excited because this was a scene that these were chapters that I'm like, I always knew I wanted to write this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I had taken so long to do it. I'm like, there was this. I said, Terry, I want to phrase this as a question because we're on a podcast. You're kind of my interview guest, even though we're old pals. But have you ever had that one of those chapters happen to you where it's like, this is something I've wanted to do for years, and I finally got to it.
Yeah, and
that ever happened to you?
The worst part is if it happens in the second act, right? So when I was writing Chasing the Captain, I was stuck at the end of the second act for 3 months because I wrote the scene. It was Jessica's on top of this building. She grabs the skid of a helicopter that's taken off with the bad guys that she's chasing. And she realizes after she did it how stupid that was because they've got their AKs pointed out the window at her. And all she has is a hairy, kind of a hairy Callahan 44 that she took off a dead guy. And she's hanging on, and they're flying over the Thames toward the Ferris wheel, the London Eye Ferris wheel. And she realizes the first thing she does is she puts a shot into the engine. So the turbines are starting to die and the thing's starting to go down. It's going to crash. And she realizes this is happening. And she's got one chance. She's right over the top of one of the gondolas. She's got one chance to take out the windows and drop. And she does it. So I get her safely in there and I go, how can I top that? How can I top that? That ain't, I just can't go any further than that. And really I put Captain on the shelf for like 3 months. And finally, one of my writer friends said, get back at it.
You ever going to finish that book, Terry?
Yeah.
Come on.
And you know what? I did find something better. I found something better. It was, you just got to, it's like you just got to keep going, but we live for those moments. I mean, that's, and I love it when it's almost something, since you're a writer and you know the craft, you can smell those out in other books, right? You can go and you can say, this is solid gold. And when I talk to people that I interview on my show about this stuff, I say, where is it? Where's the magic moment in your book? Is it here? And when we're both on the same page and we see that stuff, it's just, it's great. That's why we write. We write for those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And the funny thing is, I actually put this, I feel like this book that I've been writing, I mean, I've been taking so long on it. It's only been, for me, a long time, like 3 months so far to get 50,000 words.
50,000
feels like a
words
long time.
in 3 months. Wow. I'd have a book at 50,000 words. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I have done that too. I like writing shorter books, but this book's, it demands being longer. It's epic fantasy. But the beginning of this book was so like, I don't want to spoil it, so I should just back away slowly. But this was a scene, these were chapters. I'm like, okay, I knew this premise, and just the stuff to start the premise was one of those golden sequences for me.
Oh, great.
Just like the fact that, and it's so like, okay, so I knew this, because I had this image, and okay, I'll just tell you this, because I think I probably mentioned it before, but it comes from the Iron Maiden song, Grime of the Ancient Mariner?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay, so, obviously based on the poem, but in that song, in the live version specifically that I've listened to many times, there's this part where I misheard what Bruce Dickinson was singing
misheard
a few
lyrics,
times.
Yeah.
That happens to me a lot, actually. I'll misheard the lyrics, and I'm like, that gave me a whole other idea. Let's go for it, especially with Bruce Dickinson, actually. Kind of weird how that happens. He's very good at enunciating, but I'm also very good at imagining a slightly different line. But the line is, around his neck, the dead bird is hung. Right? And I honestly, actually, it's not even a mishearing in this case. It was like, what if I just reinterpret that line? What if it's something that's not a bird?
Right. It's
what
symbolic.
If it's a person?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What if the albatross in this case is not a person, is not a bird, but another human? And I'm like, oh, okay, and that's how this book starts.
Wow.
It starts with this guy being exiled into the desert, carrying his sin, his crime around his hanging from him. And that's just like, okay, so that's only like 3 chapters. He's like, okay, out in the desert with thee. And it goes places so far.
Oh, great. Great.
It's weird because, I mean, I can say how I discover everything, but that sometimes I discover part of the book way, way before the rest of the book, I guess is what I'm getting at.
That's a great question.
When those golden scenes happen.
Do you find
that, does that happen?
So you like get a second act chapter that's absolutely perfect, and then you got to figure out how to get there? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, no. I'll just have a moment. Usually it's not even a whole chapter. I'll have like a moment that I really want to put in a book. That, or something like, I imagine, like, for example, it appeared in one of my Demon Hunter novels. It was in the 3rd Demon Hunter novel. Yeah. But there was a battle on a frozen lake where somebody was spiking like sharp talons or whatever into the ice to stay upright, to keep from slipping on the ice. That was the entirety of the image that I had. I had that back in high school. So I was 18 when I came up, because I was writing a novel about shapeshifters back then, and that's when it came about. I was like, I didn't put in that book though; didn't have room for it.
Never throw anything away. Never throw anything away. That's why you have Evernote.
But I thought it'd be in the sequel, but that book never got a sequel. But eventually, I got one, and I put it in there.
Excellent. Yeah,
got that moment, and it came back. No joke. 15 years later, 10 years later, something like that. No, it was more than 10 years later. Holy crap! Yeah, it was at least 12.
That's a gestation period there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that happens to me. I mean, it happens to me all the time, actually. And weirdly, I feel like it catches up. Like that scene with the dead girl around the guy's neck. I've had that in my head for I'm not the whole scene. It's not even it's a scene. It's a sequence, right? It's a series of chapters where he's just doomed. But there's some twists to it, of course.
Yeah. Well, and that's I sometimes wonder about what mental health professionals would think about us for that, because I tell my shrink all the time what I'm writing.
I've been seeing a psychiatrist since I was 14, or actually younger than that, since I was 12. Yeah. And I did get interviewed about the sort of stuff I wrote, a little bit every now and then. Mostly they've never really asked me that much, but when I had a counselor, now that's when it really came out. I'm like, wow, there's a lot there. There's a lot buried in here. And I mean, I could go on about how every book had an absent dad when I was a kid, even though my dad wasn't absent. Yeah. It's this weird paradox, right? My dad was a great dad. Uh-huh. He still is. But I just kind of, it's why are all the father figures in my books evil? I don't know. Well, we'll figure it out.
Well, in some cases, it's just one less character to write. All of my stars are either, the bad guys are all orphans, or they don't have any. They're the only children, or something like that. Because I don't have to worry about any other characters messing with my story. Because I don't know if this happens to you, but being a fellow pantser, my characters will be working on something. We'll be going to go. I think we're all going in the right direction, and then one of them will just fly off into the left somewhere. Yeah, and I got to go find him and figure out what's going on, and whether or not I got to chase it, or whether I bring him back. And it's
sometimes you got to chase him though. That's the funniest part to me. You can't that guy. This character cannot go there. Cannot escape the story. He'll be gone, and that wouldn't make any sense for the book, right? That's the kind of thing I'm always trying to avoid. I don't want the characters herring off.
Yeah.
It's one of my least favorite parts. It's also a trope in epic fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. One of my least favorite parts of most epic fantasy books is the dragon princess is off on her own and everyone else is doing their shit, and she's off somewhere else.
Yeah.
For sorry, spoiler alert, 6 seasons of the TV show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the I've been a fan of The Rookie. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but I really like that one a lot. But they're now on season 7, so we've already the guy's made it through, and he's gotten his promotion, and he's done undercover work. So now in the last season he got married, and so I'm thinking, okay,
he's hardly a rookie anymore.
Here comes the baby, right? I mean, that's the next thing, and then you run out of stuff, and once they start recycling, I admire the Dick Van Dyke Show guys. They quit at the top of their game. I mean, they were number one. Yeah. And Carl Reiner and those guys said, "Hey, listen, let's go out before we run out of stuff that's funny to do."
I mean, Seinfeld too.
Yeah, well, same story. I mean,
kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Although, I mean, obviously, Larry David came back with Curb Your Enthusiasm, but it's a different approach, right? It's slightly different.
Oh, and juxtapose that against MASH, right? Which I think.
Oh yeah.
The minute McLean Stevenson and Larry Linville were out of there, I mean, Harry Morgan was a great substitute, and he had a fantastic actor. But I remember when they were showing him in the afternoons when our kids were babies, and I would come home from my DJ shift, and my wife would be watching it, and the show would start. We'd want to say, "Was Wayne Rogers in this one?" If it's Wayne Rogers and not Mike Farrell, we know we're going to like it. And it's not because we didn't like Mike Farrell, but the
it's just the kind of
dynamic,
do,
the
right?
dynamics between Radar and Blake were fantastic. All that stuff. I mean, and the clips are still out there, right? I mean, the nice thing about YouTube is that you can put them all together. So it can be 7 minutes of Radar anticipating what the next guy's going to say, or all those best things. So if you need a fix, you can OD on one of those little specialties.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the tragedies of I think you mentioned this earlier, but it's one of the tragedies of the ephemeral internet, right? Is that there's so much stuff being lost. It's why I'm actually trying to get more hard copies or DVDs.
Yeah.
Weirdly, DVDs are coming back for me. And I'm like, I don't even have a DVD player on my computer. I have to plug in a separate thing.
Yeah.
To play a DVD now.
But the Apple doesn't even support external drives, right? And on the Macs.
No, it doesn't. I don't know. I've never had a Mac.
Yeah.
I've never really had a Mac of my own. But it's just crazy to me. And I wouldn't say but I try to rip these movies when I buy them so that then I have them.
Yeah.
Because you never know, like when the disc drive's going away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
And
I just keep buying the jump drives and back up to back up to back up. So
exactly. No, that we're on a similar page here because the internet just keeps it feels like the good stuff keeps going away and there's just more garbage coming out.
It's harder to find. I mean, if I'm on the trail of something,
there's so much stuff. There was so much media that was created in the classic time periods, right? Like I've gotten into horror movies the past few years.
Yeah.
I've gotten into like The Thing and the Scream movies and all sorts of stuff.
What's your favorite?
Oh, that's hard to say. I mean, I've watched the most Scream movies.
Yeah.
But I like The Thing the best.
So I got one for you. Have you seen Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter?
No. I think I should.
Well, it is probably one of the worst movies ever made. It was made by the director was a guy named Bill Bodine, who started out in the silence and for a while was a Class A director, but he was never out of work because he could turn stuff out.
B movies.
And this one you would like because Joe Bob Briggs does the commentary. And he takes you into each one of these. He says, this is the last movie this guy made. This is a career killer. This is the last movie this guy made. And this guy over here, he actually has a PhD in philosophy from Michigan State University. There's all these kind of weird stuff that's in there.
Yeah. It's funny, actually, she mentioned the career killers because I've been thinking about it more lately. It's from my time as an English major, right? I read one of these career killer books multiple times when I was an English major. It was Thomas Hardy's last novel, Jude the Obscure.
Yes. Yep.
And that book is so controversially horrifying that it's just like, of course, no one could handle it back in the 1890s. But it's not that bad of a book. It's just like really, really weird and hard to read.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, looking at it from today's perspective versus back then, with the way the cultural, what we.
I mean, I think you could get away with it now. I mean, it would still be controversial, but like. You look at a book like that, and for one thing, it's a period piece, right? It's set in England in the 1890s, but it was contemporary.
Then
it makes no. Yeah. It was contemporary at the time, and that's why it offended people so much, right? I mean, and frankly, Thomas Hardy made a career of offending people, right? I mean, along with was it Madame Bovary? Who wrote Madame Bovary? Flaubert, yeah. These people were like, the sex and violence and stuff, all that stuff. It was actually the issue at the time. Now I don't think I think they could get away with it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think for example, Jude the Obscure is about a guy who marries his cousin, but he gets away. But I think that could go over a lot better these days.
Now it'd be the Jerry Lee Lewis autobiographical film.
Yeah. Oh my God. But it's just. It's about a guy who marries his cousin and then all their kids kill each other.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's an insanely dark book. But it's actually beautifully written. Thomas Hardy never wrote a bad sentence practically, but like the book itself is hard to read because of the content.
See, don't you wish you could have had him on a podcast and say, "What the heck did you do? Why did you do that?
What were you doing?"
What are you thinking about?
Now you're a poet. Now you're a poet because you're not allowed to write books anymore because no one wants them.
Well, one of my favorite authors that's working today is Marie Sutro. Have you ever read anything by her? Dark Obsessions and Dark Associations. She's got 2 of them out, and she is the sweetest woman that you would ever hope to meet. Incredibly kind, supportive, from a family of cops, but she writes dark, and she also writes great. So I mean, it's not the stuff that I like. Since she's a friend, I want to read her book, but I'm going in and the chainsaw's coming out, and I'm thinking, no, I'm not going to do this. But, it's so good. I mean, her writing is so good that you can't not read it. It's almost like watching a movie where you know that something's behind that door and it's going to be slasher stuff, but you can't turn away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that good.
Speaking of slashers, that's the slasher that made the most impact on me was Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
the remake with Jessica Biel.
Not the Cameron Mitchell.
Yeah, I didn't see the original one. The original one I haven't seen the original one.
You should. That'll be great. That'd be a great juxtaposition. In fact, if you have 2 DVDs, run them side by side and see what that feels like.
Dude, watching stereo. Yeah. So, but the cool part about this is just like how faithfully they recreated the original, though. So that's kind of interesting. That's what I hear anyway, right? I haven't seen the original yet, and I want to, because it's so much like this big, simple guy with the chainsaw is still the scariest thing in this. He's not the meanest thing in the movie, but he is the most powerful. He's the most deadly thing in the movie.
Yeah, see, I think you could put that side by side with the original. That would be very interesting.
Yeah,
to
probably.
See. It's like
Arlie Ermy was the scariest guy in the movie, though. He was awful. He played the worst. He plays like the corrupt sheriff or whatever in Hillbilly Country. He was covering for Leatherface or whatever. He might be Leatherface's brother or something. I'm not sure exactly the family relation. You never know with these hillbilly types in this kind of movie. But yeah, he was the worst. I'm anyways, not going to spoil how that movie ends. So
see, and I'm drawn to the atomic energy age. You know, gigantic ants with James Whitmore as the sheriff and stuff like that. I love.
I like kaiju. I like big things like that. But I mean, I'm not really. Honestly, giant animals sounds kind of cheesy to me. But I have friends that write that kind of book now. They write books like that. You know, like my friend Paul Cooley or Jake Bible. Who I want to have Jake on this show so bad. I need to get Jake on this show. But these guys write books that are like monster features, but they're books. Yeah. I find that really impressive. Because how do you make character? How do you make with the spectacle so minimal in fiction, right?
Right.
How do you make people care? You must be really good at writing, actually.
Yeah, that's the trick, isn't it? How do you get people to care, especially when it's a dark, an unflattering, or you know what?
Or when like the threat is kind of absurd, like giant ants.
Yeah.
Or a killer like a stinging jellyfish or something, like Paul's latest book, The Medusa Zone. Yeah. It's like, how does, or it's just a jelly that disintegrates people that gets pumped up out of an oil well in the middle on an oil rig. That was Paul's probably his most successful book at this point, The Black. That's so cool. I mean, like, that's such a great idea. It's like the monster, it just looks like a puddle of oil.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole secret of that genre to me is that you take something that is normally at its normal size or its normal shape or whatever you think it is. It turns out that it's not that at all. That it's something that is very deadly. And of course, we as humans think we dominate the world. And this is what I liked about 1953 War of the Worlds, right? The H.G. Wells thing.
Oh, yeah.
Very good with Gene Barry and Gene Robinson, I think. Les Tremayne was in it. Is that, you know, at the end, it was the microbiology stuff.
That's in the book, too.
Yeah, that's right. Right in the book.
That was really, really prescient.
And that at the beginning and the end, they quote Wells. I mean, you know, at the end, they say that, you know, the world, civilization was saved by the smallest thing that God in his wisdom put on this earth. And that's a real cool, if you think about it, on one hand.
No, I loved that. We had the Big Little book of that when I was a kid. That was one of my favorite books ever at the time. We had a few illustrations, but otherwise it was basically just the H.G. Wells book pared down a little bit.
It scared the heck out of me. I mean, I remember the first time I saw it on TV in color when I was a child, and I couldn't sleep that night. But I was also if you look back on the technology that they used, because they did not have CGI back then. All that stuff was miniatures, and the that sound that you hear it in all the movies of the ray guns. Yeah. That was done with a Fender amplifier and, you know, a Strat or something like that. They turned it up.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, that's like what's his name? Like all those great guitarists. Like the guy from Queen who made his own guitar, and he was like an engineer. He could just engineer his own guitar, so it sounded like what Brian May. Yeah. So it sounded like whatever he needed.
Well,
you know?
there's a lot of guys like that. Cool. I mean, Todd Rundgren was an engineer. You know, he built the studios, the multi-track studios for his band. And when you understand, that's what I think is so cool about guys like that, is they understand the entire process. A lot of, you know, some of the artists that I work with in my editing world, they don't, you know, they know how to tell a story, but they don't know what they can do with the tools that we have now to make that happen. And that's my role as an outsider to do that. But occasionally I'll come across somebody who knows. I'm working with somebody now on a documentary who really knows how all that stuff works. And when she gives...
That's got to be a real joy.
Yeah. I mean, because you're almost thinking in parallel, right? And that is the coolest. This is why I love being on your show, because we just riff off of each other until the stopwatch says it's time to go.
Yeah, there's always got to be a stopwatch though. But we have still some time. I got plenty of energy. I drank a cup of coffee late today. I can handle it. Yeah, no, but there's so much to that though. There's so much to the parallel process thing. You keep actually going back to this conversation. I noticed, like with the, watch those two movies back side by side.
Yep.
Observe and honestly, I feel like there's a real, I don't know, there's something to that I'm having a hard time putting my finger on what's so cool about the idea, because there's this parallel evolution thing. I mean, you get two people coming to the same conclusion or a similar conclusion. But there's always going to be the little differences in how they got there matters. Mm-hmm. Or two movies telling the same story, but it's not the same story because they changed. There are little things that are different.
It's I mean,
even a shot.
The first experience for me was going to see 2001: A Space Odyssey after 4 joints. That was really amazing. Sitting in the back row, but the trope is playing Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon while you watch Wizard of Oz. Because they say that, and we've done it. I mean, we found the cue points where they say to start it. And there are some places where the stuff changes with the scenery and with the acts and things like that. I think it's luck, but there's that kind of stuff fascinates me because I think it elevates the art, right? It's almost another way that I look at that is that when I hear an audiobook read by a very good narrator, a great voice actor, it takes the whole story to another level. But at the same time, if I hear the same book read by a lousy narrator, it doesn't matter how good the book is. You don't even want to be into it for 10 minutes. So that,
actually, it's funny. And sorry,
I think about that a lot because now that I just finished my 26th book narrating. I think maybe I started that right around the time we did our show the first time.
That's awesome. Good, congratulations.
But I've learned a ton. I've learned a ton from doing it, and I've also learned that I like reading stuff that's well written. Because that fires me up. I do Patrick Flint for Pamela Fagan Hutchins now, and I love it when she sends me a new book because she's such a great storyteller. I know the characters and I can actually inhabit them, and I feel myself being, it's like when we write, you feel yourself being taken over by their essence, and you just want to recreate that as best you can.
I want to shout out a book that I've been reading lately. It's Thrum. I forget the author's name. It's one of these people. I found it on. I found her on Threads originally, and she was talking about her book, and I'm like, oh, I'll check that out. It's a little novella called Thrum. THRUM.
Is that the one by Meg Smitherman?
That's correct. Yeah, that's the author. Meg Smitherman's Thrum. It's so weird, but I was reading it. Actually, I took the dog to the dog park, right? Now, my parents' dog. I was just walking the dog. Took him down to the dog park, and I sat for a second and read a chapter of that book because the dog's just running around with the other dogs. And I read a chapter of that book. And then as I put my phone away, I looked because I was reading on my phone. I'm like, wow. And now I'm looking at everything. And I'm like narrating because it's the first person book. I'm like narrating the world like this book. It got into my head. And it's so wonderfully written. And that's that kind of thing. I notice that with myself all the time now. If I read a really powerful book, or like Dan Simmons books do that to me all the time.
Yeah, well, that's easy to do.
Start seeing the world their way.
Because we think about things that happen to us within the context of whatever the music was that was playing at that time or something else, and when that happens again, it triggers us, and it's real.
Yeah.
I think it happens a lot more now because we're so addicted to our screens that we might be watching something on the screen when something happens in our real life. Like when I go to watch my grandson play basketball, I got the phone in the pocket whenever he's on the court, but when he's off, I don't know anybody. I got work to do. I got to catch up on some stuff. But then I start thinking about, okay, I had any desk open and I was working on this thing when that guy shot that 3-point shot from half court. That's
because you don't know who the guy is. Like, I don't have that much context.
But it was,
right?
but it was a stunner, right? It's kind of a stunner.
He's doing an amazing job, but you don't know him. So it's like, of course, you frame it up by, this is where we were. This is what I was doing. He was doing something pretty freaking cool.
Maybe that's a memory trick. Maybe we have to hook things that are important. We don't want to forget to something like stack and link method. Yeah.
Yeah, the other trick for memory for me, it won't work with live events or anything, but I actually really have grown to like repetition over the past year or two. as a way to enjoy anything, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I in particular, there's this one TV show, this one anime actually. So it's a Japanese cartoon, but it's very brutal and dark. It's a, adult cartoon, but it is so powerfully done. Just this one season of the show is so powerfully made that I'm like, I could just watch this over and over, even though it's grotesque and horrifying. I guess I'm just into that kind of thing. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, okay, so this is something I can watch over and over again, even though I already know it.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really, I think that's an evolution for me lately, because I never used to be able to do that. It's like, it doesn't matter how good the thing is. I'm not going to watch it again and again as an adult. Come on. And then it happened. It finally got me. Some stuff finally got me. And I'm like, okay, I can listen to the same song over and over, right? That happens to me. But it's kind of like that, except it was with the whole TV show.
So do you listen to stuff in your headphones when you're going to bed at night?
Not usually. Because I need to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, so if something's going on, you're staying awake. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that'll keep me up. Or I'll listen to like a YouTube video. Something that.
Yep.
I'm gonna miss. I'm not gonna miss it once it's over. If it runs out and I miss the end of it, it doesn't.
Right. Well, in that for me, I have a small library of films that I do throw on for the audio while I'm going to sleep, because I can. And my memory is such that I can tell exactly how long it took me to go to sleep, because I'll think about the last scene that I remembered. And when you're hearing it, watching it over and over again, you know what's coming, and it's almost like it's almost hypnotic in that way, because it's the same thing. But that's my revelation. I don't think I said that on any podcast before. You get all the good stuff, Tim.
Let me just let you. It's just a matter of letting you talk.
Right.
I mean, come on, just drag it out of you, But it's so good to chat with you, Terry, and I thought I was good to go, but man, I am crushed. This has been so much fun.
Oh, thanks. I really enjoyed that. The thing that I love about being with you is that we never know where we're going. It's gonna go anywhere.
No.
And we've talked about some cool stuff.
With me
if I get one person to watch Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter because of this podcast, it will have been a success.
Oh, you might have already succeeded. I'm going to have to find that.
It's great.
Track that one down.
Oh, it's great. It's so bad.
Greatly terrible.
It's like watching the credits on every Jackie Chan movie ever made. It's that bad.
Oh, that's funny. Well, what an analogy. But yeah. But Terry, where can people find your books?
So
actually, no, forget it. Sorry. 1 second. We're going to go a little long. I've changed my mind. Okay. I wanted to say, because I'm looking into getting some audiobooks made for some of my books, because I finally have the finances for it a little bit. And I'm like, I just don't. I don't even know where to begin looking for the right narrators, even though I got ACX and everything. I've had audiobooks made before, and audiobook made before, but like, it's going to be, I'm just don't know. I feel like the effort of just even listening to these audiobooks is going to be like the audiobook, the narrator excerpts and stuff is going to be so tough. Like, I don't have time for that right now. I got a day job. I got all the writing to do. And I'm so excited about it. I just wanted to mention that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the way that I work, I'm not on ACX. I'm not on Find a Way. I like to work with my friends. And before we even start, I'll give them a chapter. I'll give them a chapter for free. I think that way I get to know the book. They get to know me. And then we got to feel if the chemistry's right. It's a lot like finding the right shrink, right?
I wasn't like propositioning you off the bat, but I mean, your voice is so good, it's hard not to. No, I have a lot of friends. I have a number of friends who are into, not a lot, but I have a number of friends who do audiobooks and narrate them.
Yeah.
You guys are all so cool.
Well, they're great.
Anyway,
yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful community. Yeah. I mean, getting to know some of the best of the best and understanding how their business works. I mean, the guys that are making the money are doing 50 books a year. They're doing a book a week. Wow. And that's that's some pretty serious time commitment.
That's a lot of time.
And you have to learn a lot of tricks about how to do it fast, right? So when you make the inevitable mistakes, and then the way that I do it is I give my author, whoever's managing me, the Dropbox link, so when the chapters go in, they can listen to them, and then we keep a Word doc open in Dropbox where they put in Okay, chapter 2 at 1 minute and 20 seconds, you said potato and it should have been potato. And that way I can go back in and make the fixes super quick. But that's the biggest
awesome.
challenge, I think, aside from being able to do the art well, is to do it efficiently and fast. And that's what I've been working on.
It's so similar to fiction, to writing, right? It's similar to writing a book in its own way. At least for me, I mean, I find like if I want to make money at this, I got to write fast.
And are you writing faster now than you did when we last talked? Or is it the same?
When did we last talk? No, I'm actually a little slower than I used to be.
Really? Okay.
I'm because I was dictating, I think, when we last chatted, I believe. I mean, it was
because I find that's very interesting because I think some of the authors I talk to are able to write much faster, but others, because they know more about the craft, are more deliberate. So there probably isn't a.
No, it's for me. It's a matter of, I think it's actually a lack of practice, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I'm just a poor typist, and I took like 4 years where I mostly dictated my books. And so I got really slow at typing again because I lost some of my edge at typing. I used to be able to type about 2,000 words an hour, 1,800, 2,000 words
That's
an hour.
good.
I considered that fairly slow, but compared to my dictation, which was 6,000 words an hour. Right?
Oh my gosh.
So I thought 6,000 words an hour, that's a lot. 2,000, that's okay. Let's do it. That's fine. But now I'm doing like 1,200 an hour, and so I need to put more time in, and I don't have that time necessarily.
So when you're dictating, I find when I dictate, I got to do more edits. So net.
Yeah, I do. It was too much.
Versus keyboard.
It didn't work out.
Yeah, which is more efficient for you?
They're about the same, actually.
Really?
But the keyboard always results in a clean story at the end, and the dictation doesn't. Like, I mean, I can't always fix the dictation. Sometimes the dictation is busted. The typing is always good enough to fix.
Well, and now with AI,
so reliability is the question more than speed at that point.
Yep. Well, now you can dictate right into the document. I mean, that's the cool thing about speech recognition
but
stuff.
I still dictate. I still try to dictate away from the computer. And so that's why, and otherwise, if I dictate into the computer, it's actually not any faster than typing, which is.
So how do you ingest then? Do you, once you've dictated it, do you have something that's a speech to
I would
text?
put it in Dragon. I would use Dragon to transcribe.
The Dragon knows your voice and everything, and it can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I taught it my voice a couple times, different computers and stuff, and it could do it. It could do an okay job.
Very
of it,
cool. That's great.
Which is pretty wild. But I did a bunch of books that way, but I haven't done one in a while that way. So. Well, I guess the first of my Iron Dragon books that came out in 2023, I think, that one was partially dictated. But the thing is, I notice people when I release a book that I just wrote, I just typed, it's so much better, and that's why I'm basically just typing now.
I mean, that's my comfort zone.
It's not there's just an extra edge on these books, and I need all the edges I can get. So.
Typing and Microsoft Word, because I can always right click on the synonym thing and get something else if I'm stuck for a word. It's so fast.
Oh, for me, I still publish with Scrivener. I do the organize with Scrivener, but I type into Cold Turkey Writer.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Cold Turkey Writer is so good. It doesn't export to anything but flat TXT files, right?
Yeah.
So plain text. But it's so powerful because it blocks out your whole screen, turns your computer into a typewriter.
I think that's terrific. Yeah, I got a Neo.
It's so cheap and it's so easy to use. Like I paid $5 for the permanent professional version, right? But it's actually free to use, and it has almost all the same features in the free version. Cold Turkey Writer, I can't sing its praises enough because sadly it doesn't work on Chromebooks. But actually, my friend who's been on the show before a while ago, I need to have him back sometime soon. Yadanja Wijaratne from Sri Lanka. He wrote a text editor called Mokutan.
I don't know that one.
Really, really cool. It's really cool. It's like a browser based thing though.
Oh,
it's like an HTML file, and you just write straight into it. Pretty sweet, but that works on just about any platform because it's just a web page basically that you can write in.
So is it in what do you write it in, JavaScript or?
I'm not a coder, but I'm not a data scientist. Yeah. He's the data scientist. But no, I don't know exactly how it works. I think he probably just he could probably have written it in any text editor, probably like even Notepad Pro, something like that. Notepad, whatever, the one that you can code stuff in. You know, that's the kind. I don't think it's Java, but it's just HTML. Yeah, it's HTML. I think
that's amazing.
So same stuff that the web's made out of mostly.
See, I always want to get under the hood with that stuff to figure out how it works. I want to know how it works.
I mean, this one he has the source code out. He has all
really?
the code out. You can look at it, edit it. It's all free.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's on his website, so people should check that out. If I remember, I'll put a link. But yeah, it's like a word that if you search Mokuton text editor, you won't get anything. Probably, maybe if you threw in text editor, you search Mokuton, you'll get a bunch of references to the Naruto manga. But it's okay. That's where you got the name.
Well, for many years you put Ubuntu in, you didn't get anything that had to do with Linux. So that was
absolutely, yeah. Well, anyway, Terry, finally we've come to the end. I had to give you a little extra time because it's been so long.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tim. It's great to see you again. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have you on again sometime soon. Hopefully we won't be here. We waiting 4 or 5 years between guests this time. I always say that now lately. I've had to have a lot of older guests back, former guests back on again, and it's always a good time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Where can people find your books?
It all starts at terryshepard.com. That's where you can get to the social media. All the stuff that I do is there. The narration, my blog, my podcast with my author interviews is all there. Links to the books. It's central pivot. And then if you want to go up from there, it's got the link to Facebook and Instagram, and I got to put Blue Sky in there now because I just start doing
fantastic.
That. Great to see you, my friend. Thanks so much.
Great to see you too. I think we nailed it. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you again soon, people. You can find more about this podcast at Libsyn, the Libsyn feed. I should really link that Libsyn feed on the website. I'll be doing that soon. You got my word on that. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you again next week.